Working in a behavioral hospital during COVID felt like navigating a minefield every day. No two shifts were ever the same, but one day stands out in my memory. A day that started with a cloud of dust and ended with complete chaos. I walked onto the unit like any other day, but the second I stepped into the main hall, I knew something was very wrong. The air was thick, not just with tension, but with actual dust. So much that even through my N95 mask, it was hard to breathe. The entire hallway was in disarray. Ceiling tiles and chunks of insulation lay scattered across the floor like a bomb had gone off. Wires dangled ominously from the ceiling, swaying alongside broken pipes and light fixtures. "What the hell happened?" I asked aloud, hoping someone would explain. A nurse came sprinting down the hallway, her face pale. She stopped just long enough to catch her breath and managed to stammer, "He's in the roof." I stared at her, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "What do you mean, in the roof?" She pointed upward, and that's when I heard it. A loud thud followed by frantic shuffling. It sounded like something, or someone, was crawling above us. My stomach dropped, and then the screaming started. From somewhere in the ceiling, a man's voice bellowed, "You're not putting a chip in my head. I know what you're trying to do." I froze for a moment, trying to process what was happening. A patient, somehow had managed to climb into the drop ceiling and was now tearing through insulation, wires, and pipes like a human wrecking ball. The nurse quickly filled me in. Apparently, this had been going on for hours. The patient, who was deeply paranoid and convinced the government was after him, had escaped his room and somehow hoisted himself into the ceiling. Once up there, he'd started crawling through the ducts and panels, destroying everything in his path. Maintenance had already tried to talk him down, but every attempt only made him more agitated. "He keeps saying we're trying to chip him," the nurse whispered, her voice trembling. "He thinks the ceiling is the only safe place." Before I could respond, there was another loud crash above us. Everyone's heads shot upward just in time to see one of the ceiling panels give way. For a split second, time seemed to slow down as the patient plummeted through the opening, landing with a sickening thud on the floor. We all froze, expecting him to be hurt, or at least dazed, but he scrambled to his feet like nothing had happened. His face was a mix of anger and fear, his eyes darting around wildly. And then he grabbed a broken pipe that had fallen with him. "Stay back," he screamed, swinging the pipe like a makeshift weapon. "You're not chipping me. You won't control me." The situation was spiraling fast. Staff tried to approach him, speaking calmly, but every step forward made him swing the pipe harder, yelling about government conspiracies and mind control. At this point, the fire department arrived. I felt a wave of relief. They'd help us manage this, right? Wrong. The firefighters took one look at the scene, the broken ceiling, the swinging wires, and the man wielding a pipe, and shook their heads. "Good luck," one of them said with a laugh. Then they turned around and left. I couldn't believe it. We were on our own. Meanwhile, the patient had entered full ninja mode. He was pacing back and forth, the pipe clutched tightly in his hands, muttering under his breath about chips and mind control. Occasionally, he'd pause to glare at us, daring anyone to come closer. We had to think fast. Security arrived and worked with the staff to come up with a plan. Finally, one of the security guards managed to distract him by talking calmly and offering him a bottle of water. It was enough of a distraction for another guard to grab the pipe, while a third restrained him. Even then, he didn't go down easily. He kicked, screamed, and shouted about the government until he was finally escorted to a safe area where he could calm down. When the dust, both literal and figurative, finally settled, I looked around at the aftermath. The hallway was in ruins. The ceiling was completely destroyed. Wires and pipes hung down like vines, and debris covered everything. It looked less like a hospital and more like a war zone. And yeah, as surreal as the whole thing was, it was just another day on the psych floor.